Blog Talk Radio. You're listening to Big Blend Radio's First Friday Toast to the Arts show with Nancy and Lisa, and we're excited to have composer and performing artist Anthony R. Green join us today. Anthony just finished his artist residency at Gettysburg National Park, Military Park, excuse me. Yeah, that's a whole thing. It's a different deal over there. And this is all through the National Parks Arts Foundation. It's a nonprofit that offers these amazing month-long artist residencies in national park units. And this is for artists of all kinds. You could be a poet, you could be a painter, a photographer, a filmmaker, a performing artist, composer like Anthony is, and apply for these amazing positions. I mean, it's Gettysburg to Dry Tortugas in Florida, Death Valley, the volcanoes in Hawaii. I know. I want to be an artist in residence.
Yeah.
But anyway, very excited to have Anthony join us, and I encourage you to go to his website. It's anthonyrgreen.com, and also check out all the amazing residencies that are up there. You gotta get on board with them because things come and go real fast. So go to nationalparksartsfoundation.org. How are you, Anthony? Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing very well, and I'm so excited to talk about my time in Gettysburg.
You know, and it's interesting because this is a national military park, and there's battlefields, and then we have seashores, and then we have national parks like Yellowstone, and Gettysburg is this iconic park, but the history, and there's nature, but this is a very complex place to be, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, definitely. There are lots of quote-unquote ghosts and spirits around, and when you arrive, and if you're unfamiliar with what went down in the Battle of Gettysburg, then it all just seems vast and open and a little bit confusing, but fraught with tension at first. And as a resident, you are afforded a private tour of the battlegrounds. And so I had a wonderful, wonderful tour guide who took me to the cemetery and explained the layout of the land and where Lincoln actually was when he gave the Gettysburg Address, and then took me through day 1 to day 3 and told me about the battles and took me up to Little Round Top and just explained so much information to me. And I think I took it all in. So I was so privileged and blessed to have been there for the month.
That's amazing. Wow. I mean, because and so you get this information. There's nothing like going around and having a guide or a park ranger take you around and give you this information.
Awesome.
And I encourage, folks going to a park, if you can get into a ranger program, do it, because it's just there's nothing like it. Having someone actually explain and you get to ask questions, isn't that a difference about being someone walking in and not getting those experiences, having that ranger communicate with you or the expert?
Exactly. Yeah, you can go to the park and you can drive around and get the map and see the sights, but having somebody there with you, for instance, there's this one road that has these memorials, these dedications based on states, and on that road there's the statue of Robert E. Lee, and he's looking directly at the statue of George Meade. So it's really ominous. But I wouldn't have known that the Meade statue was literally a mile across and this field was where Pickett's charge took place, I wouldn't have known that without the guide. So to have the guide there explaining all of these little tidbits, it really just made those events come to life in a way that you just can't do on your own.
No, I think that's awesome because it's really hard to imagine a battle that you weren't part of. Mm-hmm. And even though you've seen remnants of it, it's somebody who knows the history, who speaks with passion, means everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Definitely.
doesn't that go with what you do as an artist, as a performing artist? You know, when a ranger or an expert takes you out and they have that passion, that living history, doesn't that go with performing arts in a way of being a storyteller to get that story over to, you know, the person there, like having them feel it?
Definitely it goes hand in hand. So the type of performance art that I do is music-based. And thus far, my music-based performance art has been about conveying a story, specifically the story of Black people in the United States, both the good and the bad aspects. So I do talk about lynchings, and I talk about slavery and oppression, but I also talk about dance and resistance and creativity, you know, all of the things that Black people did to survive and to keep up their morale. So definitely you have to be passionate about your topic and your performance piece in order to convey the depth of the story and the importance of the story, but also to have respect to the people that went through all of these things. And I think the guide who took me around Gettysburg National Military Park, he also had respect for everybody who was involved in this battle. So, yeah.
How does that feel, too, going to a place like Gettysburg where, you know, there's so much bloodshed, and it just, how does that feel being there? We haven't been there yet, and battlefields always freak me out, you know? I get the jeebies.
But they're hard.
It's hard to swallow, you know?
Yeah, it is hard. I have to say, I didn't see any ghosts, but there was one time where the basement door was open, and I hardly went to the basement, so I don't know how that door got open. I'm not going to say it was ghosts. Maybe it was just a faulty latch, but who knows? But other than that, yeah, being on the battleground, so the house is located pretty much in the thick of Pickett's charge, and there was a General Sickle, who made his way down this street, and he was really supposed to go to Little Round Top, but he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go down this street. And the house that I stayed in was basically where Sickle ended up in the war, in the battle. And so that's called Sickles Avenue, but the house is parallel to Sickles Avenue, really close. And so you can basically walk outside, and if your imagination is good enough and you know the stories of what happened in these 3 days, then you really can imagine people fighting. You can almost see the fighting and even hear the cannons and the muskets fire and cries, and imagine the blood that must have been pouring down and flowing across this dry grass, you know. The grass itself, it probably hasn't changed that much since 1863. So, and there are also trees there that haven't died. So those trees are called witness trees. And so the preservation of these sites is pretty stunning. And then you see the paintings, especially the cyclorama painting, and you realize that, what you're seeing on the park in real life is basically what those soldiers were seeing. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's deep. It runs deep, you know.
It does.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I think of an artist who is now responsible for recreating a battle scene, I mean, how would you do that?
Like the cyclorama?
Yeah,
that's over there?
I mean, it really is something when you think about the detail and everything that goes into recreating a battle scene. It means you have to delve into partially stuff you don't want to, but it's history, so you have to, and there's feelings on both sides of whether you should or you shouldn't, and to be as honest and portray it as accurately as possible. That's quite an undertaking.
Well, I think that's what's so amazing about your work, Anthony, is that you stand up for social justice, but you stand up, and you do it in different formats. And I really appreciate that, because I think that a lot of times that's where your integrity lies. You've got that, in you, where I think it's sometimes very difficult for people to speak the truth or what's going on or shed light on something because it may not be popular or there's fear, and you just go with it, man. It's like that's what's flowing through your veins. It seems like to me, from what I've listened to and watched, that it's like I'm going all out. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, you have to put yourself out on the line, and you have to be brave, because there are people that need to hear these messages, and then there are other people that want more people to speak these messages, but they don't have the platforms or they don't have the safety to say these things. I remember when I was growing up, just professionally, I couldn't criticize certain groups certain ensembles or arts administrators that may have treated me badly, because if I criticized, then I definitely wouldn't get that next gig. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so there are people in that position socially who can't speak for themselves, because if they do, then they could end up seriously being wounded or worse. I'll just leave it at that. So these people need advocates. Everyone really needs an advocate. Everyone who's going through some form of injustice or oppression, they need an advocate in a safer position to fight on their behalf. And perhaps what I do isn't as strong of a fight as Bayard Rustin or Malcolm X or Martin Luther King Jr., but I do feel like I'm giving voice to situations and to people who may or may not be able to provide that voice in a public way.
Well, it goes in your soul, and it's something that doesn't leave you. Music doesn't leave you.
Yeah,
well, it's a constant reminder that there's somebody that's on your side. In this country especially, we've lived in different countries, and this country, I will say, in a lot of regards, can specialize in what I would just say intimidation. It's not full frontal honesty of let's just go to war. There's that constant intimidation on some factors in some spheres. Trying to be careful here, but I probably already got in trouble.
No, I think you're right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think people on both sides can agree. If both sides is even a thing, I truly believe that politics is a circle. It's a continuous circle, and some people are just left of center. Some people are so left that they're actually right, and they don't know it. But people on all sides should be able to come to the consensus that there are voices in this country that speak way too loud, but worse, are given platforms that allow them to speak way too loudly. And in these situations, what do we criticize, the person or the platform,
Everyone has to look at all of it, and it's it's both, man. Sorry, but you can take a platform and shine light, and it's like, are you going to shine light or darkness? And to me, that's pretty much it. It's up. That's your choice as a human being. It's up to you which way you're going to go on that. To me, that is a night and day thing. That is, that's the integrity thing. You're either going to do the right thing or you're not, and there is no halfway when it comes to doing the right thing. So I think that's what it comes down to. What led you to apply for the Gettysburg residency? What was it? Because I know you've done so many residencies all over. And you've traveled all over the world, like Sweden and Israel, the Netherlands. I'm like, look at all these places you've been. What was it that you said, Gettysburg? Or did you apply for other residencies through National Parks Arts Foundation, or did you specifically want Gettysburg?
Well, I specifically wanted Gettysburg for two reasons. One of them is a practical reason. I do not have a car or a driver's license. So I cannot really do a residency in a volcano, unfortunately, as much as I would love to. But
he needs to be able to run.
Exactly. I would need to hire a personal driver, and unfortunately I don't have that type of money. If I did, I know some friends who would love to be in a volcano driving me around. But so other than that, I have an organization called Castle of Our Skins. And Castle of Our Skins is Boston-based. I started it in 2013 with my good friend who's an amazing violist, and her name is Ashley Gordon. And Castle of Our Skins is a Boston-based concert and education series dedicated to celebrating Black artistry through music. And Castle of Our Skins had a residency at Gettysburg College a couple of years ago. So it was just on the papers. I think it was just in the stars that I would come back to Gettysburg because I needed to spend more time in this space. When we went there for the residency, we didn't get a chance to see the military park. So it was just really wonderful to get a chance to do that.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And so the Gettysburg Address, tell us about this. We're going to play this.
Oh, yeah, of course. And I completely forgot to say that I set the Gettysburg Address. So I'll introduce this piece definitely. I want to introduce it by saying that there are groups of works of mine that I consider belonging to a series. And this particular series is all about setting, quote-unquote, American texts. So this series started when a soprano friend of mine commissioned me to set the Bill of Rights. And in our conversation, I said, well, can I make this a bigger piece and add parts of the Declaration of Independence and the preamble to the Constitution? So I ended up writing this 30-minute song cycle that set all of these texts. And unfortunately, the soprano who commissioned it couldn't premiere it, but I ended up premiering it with another fantastic soprano. Her name is Cecilia Allwine. And my friend Ashley Gordon, who I started Castle of Our Skins with, played the viola in that song cycle. So it was one of our first major collaborations. And ever since I composed that piece, I had this interest in setting other quote-unquote American texts. So I set questions that are on the exam to become a United States citizen, and I also set the Gettysburg Address. So this setting came as a commission from the Playground Ensemble, and they're based in Denver, Colorado. And when I was writing this piece, it was a very difficult process because the Gettysburg Address, when you read it out loud, it takes about 2.5 minutes, right? So how do you turn a 2.5-minute speech into a full-fledged 11, 12-minute long piece? That was one of the biggest challenges. How do I work with this text and extract meaning? So I started thinking about sounds that could have been heard on the battlefield, and that's why there's quite a lot of dissonance, quite a lot of explosive sounds and explosive gestures. But if you listen carefully, there's a kazoo that plays some battlefield songs that you would hear played on a trumpet. So there's taps, and there's another Civil War era battlefield song that I threw in there. And as a general foundation to derive all of the pitch material and most of the gestures, I used a folk song called The Hills of Shiloh And the lyrics to this folk song were written by Shel Silverstein. And the melody is amazing. It's, do you know Amanda Blaine in the hills of Shiloh? And the song talks about this woman who goes out every day on the battlefield expecting to see her husband come home from the war. But she doesn't realize that the war had ended already. And it's just this very heavy, ominous text directly related to the Civil War. So I used that melody to inform a lot of the pitch material in my setting of the Gettysburg Address. So towards the end of the piece, after you hear all of this text and all of this dissonance and all of these explosive sounds, you'll hear the ensemble and the soprano sing "Dia-da-dum, da-da-da-da," and that's my homage to not only this poem and this song, but just to Civil War situations that may have arisen in the past.
Wow. Well, here it is, everybody. We're going to play it, the whole thing, the Gettysburg Address. I'm so glad you got to introduce this because I want people to hear, how much goes into this, how much goes into a piece of music like this, too. And I certainly appreciate it. And here, everybody, the Gettysburg Address by Anthony Green. You're listening to Big Blend Radio with Nancy and Lisa, and it's the First Friday Toast to the Arts show, and you just heard the Gettysburg Address, and that is by Anthony R. Green, who was the recent Gettysburg Artist in Residence at the National Parks Arts Foundation, and he is with us right now. Anthony, I wish we were in person with you, actually. This would be far more fun, but my gosh, that is such a roller coaster, epic piece and emotional. I feel just like it's every little part of it, like even if you're hiding behind a tree, to the feeling of someone going down, to like, okay, I can breathe at this point. There's like, that's pretty epic. I mean, to put that together.
Well,
that's amazing.
Thank you so much. And the performers, they did such a fantastic job with such a difficult score. So this is the Playground Ensemble, and they are devoted to fearless new music, and they just perform everything with such a high caliber. So I'm just forever indebted to this amazing group of musicians for giving me such an amazing performance.
They are really incredible. And how do you write something like this? Are you writing it, on a piano and then scoring it, or are you writing it through a program? How do you write?
Well, my process, it differs depending on what piece or project I'm working on. But for this particular piece, I started by singing this melody to the folk song Hills of Shiloh that I mentioned before, and then figuring out all sorts of different gestures that I could utilize with that melody. But then, actually, I should back up and say, whenever I write a song, I always start by analyzing the text in a very nerdy way. So I research the history of the text, but then I start to speak the text, and I start to notate the rhythms of the text, and I start to notice things about the text. So for instance, in the Gettysburg Address, there's a lot of talk about dedication. There's dedicated and dedication, and we should dedicate. And so that particular word always appears with a certain melody in my setting of the Gettysburg Address. And little things like that only come from me analyzing the text. I also split the text into different sections and place certain parts of the text on priority lists. So what should really speak out here and what can be subdued there, etc. It really starts with me just digging into the meat and bones of the text and asking the text what I can do with it in order to pay respect to the text as well. I hear so many times pieces of music that set poetry or quotations from letters or whatnot, and it sounds like the music could just accompany whatever. It doesn't sound like the text was informing the music. So I really try to have the text inform the music.
Do you pick what instrument plays what?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. That also depends on the parameters of the commission. So the Playground Ensemble is a small chamber. Well, I would consider them a small chamber orchestra. They have quite a number of players in their roster, in their band. But I knew that I didn't want to use everybody, and I wanted to create an intimacy, but also take a dive and work with percussion, because at that time I maybe had one or two pieces that incorporated percussion and not very well. So I knew that Rachel Hargroder, who's the percussionist of the Playground Ensemble, is an incredible player, and I wanted to challenge her to play some meaty music with this crazy text. But yeah, I could. Everybody who plays in this ensemble, they're all just amazing players. So really, I wanted to give a welcome challenge to every player there. I don't want to single out the percussionist because everybody is just so fantastic. So
I thought to me there is jazz in there. Like I felt like Herbie Hancock would have loved to have sat in on that. Just I don't know why, but especially at the beginning, like I was like, there's jazz in this. There is there's this vibe on this where, and I think that's what happens in a war. There's improvisation and that's
sure.
there's everything. You have this balance of, okay, this is what you're supposed to do, need to do, and then things go amok, right? Because it's a war, and it's people, and I don't know. That's just me. That's just my feeling of that, especially at the beginning. Just kind of, I don't know.
Well, voices come from different places.
I felt Herbie-ish there, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a really keen observation that I definitely would not have made in terms of comparing actions on a battlefield to improvisation. I think that's a really fascinating line of inquiry. With regards to this piece, I think it's also amazing that you heard jazz, because the pianist in this particular recording is an incredible jazz pianist. And while I don't ever consciously pull from jazz idioms, because I am not a jazz pianist or a jazz musician in the slightest, and I have utmost respect for jazz composers and jazz musicians, because it's just a skill set that A, I will never acquire, B, I never acquired, and C, every time I try to do it, it just is so bad that I am embarrassed and I run off the stage. But I was a gospel pianist for 6 years at a church in Providence, Rhode Island, where I grew up, and I still constantly play gospel. And lots of stuff that's within gospel has similarities to jazz.
Yeah.
So many people will go to me and say, "Yeah, is this jazz?" And I say, "Well, it's not really jazz. It's older than that. It's gospel."
Yeah. Where do you think jazz came from?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Jazz.
Yeah.
Let's get to the roots of what jazz is, because they always say jazz is America's art form, and
it's ancient.
I don't quite 100% agree with that, because I grew up in Africa and I listened to jazz growing up in the bush with different tribes, and I'm sorry, there was jazz.
It came from
Africa. It is blues, it's jazz, it's wailing, it's heart, it's soul, and then there's this entire crazy portion of the music where things go crazy.
Even the drumming, like you can have when tribes get together and they start drumming, and another faction comes in with a whole different drum beat, they change the song right there in front of you, and you've heard the song over and over, and then all of a sudden, now you're like, that's jazz, because they morphed it right in front of you, right in front of the other musicians, and it goes down, and it's awesome.
You got that. You got that in you. It's like so cool.
I have to say, when we were living in South Africa, I found a orchestra score for the Grand Canyon Suite, and I bought it because I had a keyboard. And my goal was I was going to now extract each instrument and learn the part on the keyboard and put it back together again. Oh, yeah, well, guess what? It never happened. It was so hard. It was so hard, but I learned so much about it. And then so when somebody takes something and you said there's dissonance, and I think that an audience who doesn't maybe hear that first, the idea of it's dissonant for a reason, it's discordant for a reason, they might be shocked and not recover. So when somebody goes to listen to this piece of music, how, if they walked in to see a performance,
that's a little different, yeah.
Yeah, because if you're not prepped for it, you might walk out because of the dissonance, true. And because and
that's what war is.
Well, I know, but so if you're not prepped properly for this, well, I mean, it's true. It's like, and then when you get it, then you're like, oh, I get it. Now you're into it. But if you're not prepped properly for discordant and dissonance, you might not get it. Like if you didn't know this is about a war.
Exactly. Yeah, I think for better or for worse, pieces of music like this are usually only programmed with pieces of music that have similar sound worlds. So, for instance, I don't has mostly tonal music that has the theme flowers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
in other words, right? No pop channel is going to be playing it.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
No.
But I do remember when I premiered this. Well, when the Playground Ensemble premiered this piece in Boulder, I introduced this piece on the stage, and I gave quite a politically charged introduction. And some members of the audience weren't prepared for that. So I got some looks from the audience. Even someone came up to me and basically said, you got your facts wrong about the Civil War. And I'm not going to go into the details of the conversation, but I'll just say that the person who said this to me was from the South. And so,
oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so people who are raised in the South, they have a completely different view of what the Civil War entailed. And I'm not going to say that their view is wrong, honestly.
No,
and
you can't.
And after spending time at Gettysburg National Military Park, I can say that their view isn't wrong. It's just one view that they're still holding on to after all this time.
But if you're a person, you have your viewpoint, and it's really hard to change your viewpoint without good reasons. So multiply that by thousands, and there you go. I mean, you could say the same about the North. They have their viewpoint, and history books, if you pick up a history book in the South, it is written differently than history books in the North. And who's to know? I wasn't there, so I don't know.
Exactly.
I say keep an open mind.
I think what you're doing is so educational, and it's okay to make people feel like that's not the way it's supposed to be, or that's not how the history was, or that make them feel like, hey, look this way or that, because music, art, that's what it's about. It's supposed to make us feel something, and then it will change. Maybe years later they'll go, oh, I got that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they agree then. You never know. That's the thing with art. You never know that later someone will get it. Like it's like you only can hope for that. I wanted to ask you, Berg, what was your goal for Gettysburg? Because you've done the Gettysburg Address. Now you're going into Gettysburg. What were you working on? What were you creating?
So my primary goals during this residency were to create a piece of music that is dedicated to Sabrina Fulton, who is Trayvon Martin's mother. And that was the project that I applied to this residency with. And I was slated to perform this new piece towards the end of the residency, but there was quite a bit of snow and bad weather, and the number of visitors to the park that the people in charge of organizing the performances basically said, well, you can do this performance, but only 2 or 3 people will show up, so it might not even be fruitful.
Yeah.
But it's quite okay, because another aspect of that performance, I commissioned a wonderful young talented composer named Darian Thomas. He's based in New York now. I commissioned him to create the solo version of this incredible piece of music that he wrote for 2 people playing a hand clapping game. Excuse me. And he wrote the text to this piece. It's called Kid Gunner Brother. And the piece is based on a conversation that he had with his 11-year-old brother, 11 years old at the time. And apparently they were in a Pizza Hut, and his brother turned to him and said, "I need a gun." And so Darian said, "Well, why?" So his little brother said, "ISIS. I want a gun so I can protect you from ISIS." And so Darian turned to him and said, do you know that things like the KKK and the NRA exist and all of these other more menacing forces than ISIS? And so this piece is, the solo version of this piece just incorporates me stomping and hitting my body and snapping and clapping in the same way that Black people perform step dancing. Mm-hmm. Well, all people perform step dancing, but it is a very Black artistic practice that is derived from Juba dance, which is derived from African dance, right? It goes directly back to slavery and that horrible institution. So this piece I ended up practicing and recording on the battlefield. I think it's a perfect setting. So what I did, I also requested to use a public domain video blaze how muskets were loaded during the times of Civil War. And I want to pair these two videos together because you have this video that basically says guns were like this in the 1800s, and then you have this piece of music that is talking about this little boy saying, "I want a gun," knowing how guns are today, right? So I really want to just question gun culture. Having this setting was so perfect for recording this piece. And I hope Darian is happy with the recording. I need to make some edits and send it to him.
Well, it's timely as well. I want to bring Tanya Ortega, the founder of the National Parks Arts Foundation, onto the show. Tanya, welcome. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Good illustrations I've ever heard. So I kind of want to say, just go on.
I know. It's been, we've been hanging out with Anthony for a little bit here, and we played the Gettysburg Address, which, is just an epic piece of music and storytelling and history and everything put in one. And hearing about his experience, apparently, Tanya, he didn't see as many ghosts as some others. We have to bring the ghosts up, He was even watching us. I think he knew. He knew that we were going to ask about the ghosts. But, I think this is such an interesting, residency. And what's been so interesting over the years is hearing artists like, Chip Beck, combat artists, going there and then finding that his family's connected. Nick Collier going out there and being, a veteran and recreating the scenes. Also, we've had Kochi, the poet out there, and so many different, ways of telling the story. And I think what's interesting with Anthony is he's bringing it to now. And then, it's fascinating, Anthony, what you're doing with that. And I think it's timely, what you're doing. I think it's very timely.
Yeah. These messages, sometimes people get bombarded with these messages, but sometimes people don't hear these things at all or just don't consider this point of view. So hopefully I can bring a new point of view to somebody's life. Hopefully.
That's what that's what art is for, right? I want to go, Tanya, Gettysburg is one of your main programs for the National Parks Arts Foundation, isn't it? It's like one of the most, is it like full, it's like a full-time program almost. That's how I feel. Like, are we allowed to apply? we want to just stay in the house.
It definitely is. But first, let me comment on, if you wouldn't mind, what you just said, Anthony. Looking at your work online and hearing how excited the National Park Service was to have you, you've already changed me and had me look at how the past connects with things that are happening now, and it's just amazing. So you've already done it for at least one person, me. So
awesome.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
But yes, to get back to Gettysburg, we are going to be in our next year pretty soon here. We're up to 2020, and we've it's such an important place for people to be able to interpret the past with the present, like kind of like Anthony did, but also have their own voice and their own say for what they do. And so in the years past, we've been able to put the applications out. This year, if we were on schedule, would have been a couple months ago. But we've decided to push the 2020, and we don't even have the applications out yet. They'll be published, and then they're not going to be due till, I think, August or something like that. So we're giving a very good amount of time for people to be able to apply. It's such an important program, and despite there not being ghosts for some people, it's pretty great.
And there's a peach tree. Depending on what type of year you go there, you might get some fruit.
And, I think it's interesting about the ghost thing because some people are so against that there are ghosts that they even if one was in front of them, they couldn't see it. And other people see them when they're probably not even there because they're so pro it. So it's kind of like middle ground. Like somebody who doesn't think about ghosts ever at all, who sees one, is probably more credible and rare.
Okay, so basically Nancy's saying that the ghosts are there no matter what. Get over it.
I think it's a sensitivity or you want to see a ghost so bad that you do, and then you don't want to see a ghost so bad that you don't, as opposed to somebody goes, I don't care if I see one or not, and then it's like, oh, look at that.
No, but Anthony, your jump, you look like you saw a ghost, but you look too happy to have seen it, like it wasn't a ghost, unless you were happy with the ghost. Like your photos of you jumping up, like, man, how do you do that, dude? Like seriously, I need to do some yoga stuff.
It's skateboarding.
I need help.
Well, what I do a workout program called Insanity. It's the Sean T. program from a while ago, and there's lots of jumping in that program, so I ended up getting really jump happy and took quite a lot of jumping pictures in Gettysburg.
Oh, my gosh.
You got it in the snow, but at one point it looks like it's fall there, and I'm like, what happened? And like you were there for 1 month, and the weather kept changing on you,
Yep. I experienced all 4 seasons.
Cool. That to me is the coolest thing, though. If you're in a place, you want it to change up a lot. I wanted, with Tanya on the show too, especially talk about the experience of submitting into this, and the word submit I don't like. It's true. It's like you put your application in. I will not submit.
That's funny. But
apply when you do this process. You've done a number of residencies. Any word of advice for those looking at going for it, and was it worth it for you?
Well, every residency that I've done has been completely worth it. And I think just personally, I work very well when I am isolated and I have time to really concentrate on projects. So that I just know myself, and I know that my working habits are very conducive to thriving at residencies. So any artists out there, if you don't feel like you could stay in a house built in 1814 for a month in the middle of a ghost-filled military park, then don't apply. But other than that, please apply because it's really incredible. And in terms of for applying, I would say it's best to think about your intentions, because you can just put in an application and say, yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that, and I want to do this. But if you don't have a solid foundation in intention, then the application will, I think, come across as weak. And and I think having a solid foundation in intention starts with doing some soul searching and being passionate about the project that you apply with. So.
Oh my gosh,
some meaning
to hire you to just say that one line to everybody that applies. That summed it up perfectly.
Exactly it. I think you've got to. It's integrity and passion, and go for it, man.
Well, there's certain places that touch you, even if you haven't been there. There are certain places that reach out to you. Like I always had to sing. I had to go to Africa. I just had to, and ended up living there for several years in 2 different countries, and so it was a thing of I don't know why, but that was it, and I came from a really poor family who said you'll never get there, and I was like, oh yeah, watch this.
Yeah,
and I did.
And look at Tanya creating the National Parks Arts Foundation.
Exactly.
She's like, screw rejection. We're doing this, right? Isn't that
so
it?
True.
It is true.
Yeah, we get emails from people who have applied to various and many artist in residence programs, and everybody is sort of instructed, because of course I have a big head or whatever, to kind of tell my story and be like, there's somebody else who has just hundreds of rejection letters that did this. Granted, I don't have enough time to do art now, but good that so many artists are being able to create things better than I could actually. So that's kind of our answer to that. So, yeah.
I like
thank you so much for creating this.
Yeah.
It's really incredible.
Would you do it again?
Nobody can tell me no.
I know.
Right.
I know. And if they do, then we just go get wine.
That's
and
right.
then we just go back the next day and start all over again.
Exactly.
That's how it works. But Anthony, would you do it again?
Oh yeah.
If so, would you do a different place, or would you go back to Gettysburg with the
Well,
National Parks Arts Foundation?
I would actually like to go back to Gettysburg because this time around I didn't get a chance to go to the archives, and I wanted to do some research on some Civil War songs and sheet music that might be in the library, and I wanted to take a closer look at some of the instruments and really just be with those instruments and feel what those instruments would speak to me. So, I definitely want to return and do some of the things that I didn't get to do this time around.
Oh, well, let's make that happen. I've been to the archives, and it's amazing. There's photos of me. I made somebody take photos of me in there just to prove that I was there. So we have to make that happen for you.
Yeah, that would be really great.
Could you imagine now, just bear with me here, you take your music, right, and some really crazy, weird, wacko person.
Why weird, wacko?
That thinks way far out of no boxes at all. There's no box. And you recreate the ghost that could or maybe should be in Gettysburg based on the headstones and the people who died there in the battle, and recreate them as a film with your music as a soundtrack.
Ooh.
That's
Wouldn't that be
a
cool?
good idea.
The whole project.
Yeah. Check it out,
That
dude.
is...
How many people can sleep in the house, Tanya?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I think technically we've still been saying it's one person, but the truth is that we fit families in there. So we did have a family there that ended up getting their own blow-up beds to be able to, I think fire code is something like 10 people or something like this, but don't quote me on that. But quite a few, I don't know, let's see. I think probably 1, 2, 3. There's 2 bedrooms. One is usually used as a studio, and then the living room. So really comfortably 1 or 2 people. But
is there a
5,
couch? I'll sleep on the couch.
To fit in there. Yeah, there's a couch.
I don't care. I don't care about that.
I just see movies and things.
I know there's
with when I hear music, there's certain pieces of
music.
Anthony's
music is.
I already have a film in my head.
Yeah.
Another piece of music, I guess, fun go.
But
party.
I want the music the movie to go according to his music.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It should be that way instead of like the music
wait,
goes to
Can
the
I ask
score.
a question here, just real quick? Are you guys commissioning a piece from Anthony?
No,
That's pretty
I'm just
good.
Saying.
We're just saying.
I'm just saying that his
steps
they
forward.
should like write it like they should do the video thing according to his music. Not the other way around. Not the music being like now goes according to the film.
Exactly.
It should go according to his music.
Yeah.
And we're not talking like pop music
In other words,
videos.
you
this is
you
like
write the film according to what you hear in the music.
just like what we see on theater, but you could do it as theater and then put it out there. Yeah. You know, just saying. Anthony, I think like it's so cool what you're doing. I love it. I appreciate it so much. And I think what you've done in Gettysburg, and I hope you do go back, and I hope you go for more residencies with NPAF, and you know, just keep going, man.
Me too.
Keep going, because makes us
yeah. I want to do all the things, so hopefully we'll make that happen.
Absolutely,
definitely.
Tanya, also just going on, Gettysburg is also part of the military veterans program that you have as well, right? We should touch on that. And the poets?
Yeah. Yes, we have those 2. Yes, the poets and the veterans. For a while, we actually had virtual reality, as you know, and I think we'll probably bring that back in like 4 or 5 years when there's more artists doing it. But we have the veterans programs there, as you know, that we've had them in Big Bend. We're starting them in Hawaii, and
cool. But
that has really been successful for the veterans programs. And the poets, oh my goodness. So we have we just ended a deadline where poets applied, and believe it or not, there actually weren't that many that applied. I think it was like 20 or something. Or maybe those are the finalists. I can't remember anyway. We thought a lot more people would apply, but they didn't. But it's the first year of the tour, going to the Poetry Foundation and to hopefully the Library of Congress, and having being able to read your poetry. So that's going to happen probably in October, November. The tour.
Awesome.
The tour. I love any word with a tour in it. Tour.
So you say tour. I'm there.
We're almost there. We're on the road again. As this airs, we'll actually be on the road full time. So that's going to be super cool. And hopefully we'll get to go to Gettysburg, and we'll get to go see and meet artists in residence. And Anthony, you're off and flying around the countryside and around the world next. So this is amazing. You just keep going. You're a residency hopper.
Yeah,
from one to the next.
I am a world hopper. I'm an opportunity hopper.
Yeah, well,
right on. Yeah. You got to live life, man. Gosh,
exactly.
And the message that you're doing is really great. We're going to play Almost Over. So do you want to set people up for that?
Definitely. So Almost Over is a saxophone quartet, and this sax quartet, it's my third sax quartet, but this one is full of the most symbolism that I've ever put into a piece. So in 1867, there was a collection of music that was released as a project done by 3 musicologists in the United States. And what these 3 musicologists did, they went to all of these southern states and notated songs that enslaved people sang on the fields and in the house, in homes, and just in their everyday life. And these people, they were all northern abolitionists, so they definitely were sympathetic to the situation of enslaved people. And when they released this collection, it's called Slave Songs of the United States, it caused such a sensation in the United States, and many people, of course, white people, took a lot of these melodies and ended up popularizing them and making their own versions, and then, of course, creating music by these melodies. And who was the man who wrote Sewanee River? For some reason,
what's his name?
Stephen Foster.
Yeah, Stephen. They want to take his statue down.
Stephen Foster,
yeah.
Exactly. So there's this curious statue of Stephen Foster somewhere in Pennsylvania where he's, basically stepping over this black man with a guitar and listening to the melodies. And and it's very indicative of how Stephen Foster composed, because he probably just used the sound of these songs that enslaved people sang and just copied the idea of this musical sound world, right? So what I wanted to do in my saxophone quartet was take one of these songs and build, similar to the Gettysburg Address, to build a piece of music that traces this historical story of black people and puts it into a modern day context, but also includes a survey of what black people have done throughout history. So the song that I chose from this collection is called Almost Over, and it's a song that basically speaks about how hard work is needed to get to heaven. But in my own interpretation of this song, I really feel that this is another one of those coded songs that enslaved people sang. And it was a song that meant if you wanted to get north to freedom, then you really need to work hard. It's not easy. And you have to have morale very, very high. You can't just pray. You have to pray, but you have to work. So I took this song as a basis. And then I start to add jazz and funk. I add waltz in there as a tribute to Scott Joplin, who not only is the king of ragtime, but he also made these amazing waltzes. And I put, yes, exactly. And I put strict counterpoint in there as an homage to Phyllis Wheatley, who was this woman who came over to the United States. She was stolen from Africa. She came to the United States and was sold to the Wheatley family in Boston, and she becomes a master of the English language, even though she didn't speak a lick of English before arriving to the United States. And she becomes the first published poet the first black woman to be published in the United States and in England. So I put counterpoint in there as a tribute to her. And, of course, I put contemporary music in there because I am a contemporary artist, I'm a contemporary composer, and this sound is relevant. But I also include lots of breathing in this piece. And this breathing is symbolic of Eric Garner, who was strangled by a police officer in New York, and his last words were, "I can't breathe." So that's what Almost Over is about. Yeah.
Wow. Man, you put but it's so important what you're doing, because you're taking the journey and putting it together now of what's now and showing how things have changed and haven't, right? It's like this, I really appreciate this. And
surface changes, but underlying,
the roots are still there.
Yeah, the work is still waiting to be done.
Exactly, and I appreciate it so much. Tanya, don't you pinch yourself with every artist that comes through? I mean, seriously, every time we do these segments, I'm just like, wow, man. I'm like, dude.
It's
really
amazing, and it's also amazing that the artists are so varied. And I'm always impressed. And there's so much more. I wish I even had the time in my life to just dive into everything that every artist does. I can't. I don't have that kind of. Nobody does in their lives. So thank goodness for the artists that are making it happen, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. I think art saves the world, man. I swear to God.
Definitely.
Art is it, because it speaks to your soul, your heart, your vibes. It's what gives you goosebumps. You know, sex does that too, but you can't have sex without good music.
It's Lisa's art form. Here's Lisa's art form, sex.
No, you can have that too. You can have that too. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, but it's all about like the emotion and the feeling. You know, that like sex is sex, but then there's love. And there's there's like you know what I mean. The vibes. It's the feeling.
It's really funny.
You know, sex is really good as a way to learn about yourself, right?
Sorry.
But art can teach you things about yourself that sex can't.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, because you're blinded by the light.
Yeah, and then it goes away. You know, after the first month, you're like, okay, out. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, but you're absolutely right, because art. But that's what we talked about with you at the very beginning, is this integrity and passion put together. And I think that is it. That is what art is those two put together. And sometimes as an artist, we can all lose that passion, or like we have to change direction. And so there's that murky water where you just like, what? And then all of a sudden, here it is. I know what I'm doing, and then I'm going in, and I'm in, you know.
There's a thing about being an artist where if you attempt to sell your art, right, that you are told, well, you have to get marketed wise. You have to be marketability wise. You have to be marketable. Yes, you have to paint.
That's the word.
Like when I was in South Africa, everybody, I don't think I went into any South African home that didn't have like this like little bit of pink and sage green, and every painting was the same with those two colors. And like if you wanted to sell in that country, that's what you had to paint. And
for the white people.
Yeah,
the Dutch.
Wow. And it was just like the most boring little boxes on the hillside, little boxes full of tiki.
But that's what art does. It jolts us out of it.
And it was like, no, come on, get a new color.
I feel like we have a real responsibility as the audience, as viewers of art, and our responsibility is to be able to do what you did, Nancy, and see something that has pink and blue in it, or something that is faddish, and be able to say, okay, is this an integral part of the work, or is this something that is being done in a process that doesn't have to do with art at all? And so that sounds a little judgy. It is. So this is why we have a panel here, and I'm just not the one picking. But another responsibility that I have my biases, everybody does, but I look at a piece of art, or I hear a piece of art, or whatever, and if I am inspired in any way, if it's, I want to go paint this has inspired me to paint something too, or this has inspired me to learn the violin, or something like this, or, this has inspired me to be angry, or, have a real reaction. For me personally, that is a part of what an artwork is about, as well as being able to say, this is pink and blue because everybody's doing pink and blue, so it puts it more on the commercial end of things. What is the artist's intention? And so we, as an audience, even if we know nothing about art, we have kind of a responsibility to see because if somebody purposely puts something in front of people, there is that part of the artwork, whether they like it or not. And not that it should be the impetus to make art at all, but it does still have that element.
Oh, you are so right.
It's that burden on us.
It's the same thing we talk about in tourism and travel. It's like, are you a traveler or a tourist?
Yes.
Which one are you?
That's a good question.
See, that's
I'm selling the tickets.
You got cruise ships coming to Hawaii for you, man. I know that.
I have to say, as painting wildlife, pink was my worst color. It's like, stop it already. I'm into browns and tans and animals.
Yeah, I know. But I think it is. You're really right. Oh, I want to do a whole show on that. The responsibility of human beings.
Exactly.
It's about responsibility and claiming ownership of what we do and how we perceive things. It's like, are we going to actually engage, or are we just going to sit back and go, well, this is the fad, or this is what's supposed to happen today? I think that is the biggest problem in the world, is that we sit back and let everybody else tell us what to do.
Well, you just buy it to be cool.
But it is always started by the arts somewhere.
Exactly.
The arts always spark it. The arts always do it, man. So let's do it.
Well, I think there is another responsibility as an artist to say when you are not achieving what you wanted to achieve, when it doesn't mean anything, and when you should stop. Things sometimes are better left as a concept. So that's the hardest, I think, as an artist, to be able to really be the judge of yourself and know when you shouldn't, and not put junk out there.
Don't bring the Kenny Rogers into
it. Know when to fold
Don't
them.
bring him into it.
Yeah, know when to fold them, exactly.
Yeah, well, he killed trees. So anyway, sorry, he cut down an entire forest so that they could have a house view, and then he divorced his wife after that. But anyway, sorry, don't bring that song up again.
She's into Hollywood gossip.
No, I'm not. I just get annoyed about people cutting trees down for nothing. So anyway, we're going to close with the song Almost Over. And Anthony, really, have we covered everything tonight? I think we have. I appreciate your time and your art and your music, and really can't wait to keep following you. I'm going to start watching you as you travel around, and really appreciate your work. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you. And Tanya, thank you for calling in. I know I got your time zone screwed up, and that's my bad, because, Arizona and Hawaii do different things and sometimes the same. Who knew? But anyway, thank you for calling in. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Well, thanks, you guys. Anthony, Lisa, and Nancy, you're always wonderful. I appreciate it.
You're amazing,
too,
Tanya.
Yeah, isn't she?
Yes.
I mean, what this whole organization, which she's created, is amazing. Everybody, nationalparksartsfoundation.org. They're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're on Instagram. Sign up for the newsletter so that you can get the, hello, we've got an opportunity, take it, jump on it, move on it, because it'll go. So get that. And then also keep up with Anthony. His website is anthonyrgreen.com. Thank you both for joining us. Everyone, keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. Here it is, almost over. Take care, guys.
Take care.